didn't check. Do we have any oral communications this month?
I just took a look at the spreadsheet and there are no oral communications to report out tonight.
Super. That's good to hear. Well, that's nice to know. So let's move on to last meeting's. Actually, again, I got to put this in here. I keep forgetting. Approve the agenda. Approve. This is our last meeting, and I'm finally figuring out to approve the agenda. Did people have a chance to look at the agenda, or are you looking at it now? Do I have any questions or comments? Do I have a motion to approve this month's agenda?
So moved, Michelle.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Dawn. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please say aye
Aye.
or raise your
Aye.
hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. So the agenda has been approved. Have people had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from last meeting? Any?
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bart. Any discussion? All right, also, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes, Michelle abstains.
All right, minutes. Right, you weren't here, correct?
That's
Thank you, Michelle. All right, minutes have been approved. Moving quickly forward, we have no old business. We're going to move on to new business, and our first order of business is to go through, do a read through of the board policy that the committee has been working on. So Bart, do you want to take over from here?
Sure, that sounds good. One
Thank
other
you.
quick note about the TAC. Our bylaws are now updated with our student member, so that's currently gone through
Great.
the board, and now they're on the website as accurate as of I think the 27th or something of April.
Okay, and does Surfboardy know about the fact that they now have a member?
Yes, they do, and they sent a very kind email mentioning getting it through the committee and stuff. So, and thank you, Lucas,
Great.
too, for working on the board side of that. Okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Bart and the committee for doing so much work getting that in, and going back and forth with the Surfboardy members, and figuring out the right way to have them sit in a good way on the committee.
Yep.
Thank you.
And they will be adding a member for our first meeting in the fall is how they handle that. So over the summer they'll do that. All right.
Okay.
So,
Lucas, did you have something to say? Wait, Don, wait a minute. Lucas, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted, because Bart brought that up, I did want to just reiterate too, the student board member spoke in favor and said he was very appreciative of our work. So if you want to wait till the very end of the last board meeting, it was very appreciative of the work that we all did for that.
Super. Thank you. Don?
Yeah, I'm only going to ask this question because I'm wondering about it and it kind of just came up. Technically, is not the June meeting the first meeting of next year, but we wait for the student because we need them to change grade levels? Is that how that works?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
all right. Back to the board policy, student use of technology. We sent out a PDF that had line numbers on it. It's also in the agenda. Hopefully a few of you guys were able to look at it. The piece that we're remembering here is that we're not voting on this policy. It's not a policy for TAC. We've had our own bylaws and changes in our TAC piece where we have first reads and second reads and things like that. But in this case, what we're doing is we're saying we've gone through and revamped the student use of technology to our best ability, and we would advise the board to accept this, or if that's the thing we're voting on. We're not voting on a change to anything that is in the TAC. So we're just acting as an advisory committee to say that this looks reasonable and is current and makes sense. So just wanted to kind of put that out front. And then so in that direction, I don't think we need to read through this, but I guess if there are comments or edits or just kind of opening the floor to the piece there. I think the board tends to look at the board policy and not the AR as much, but the AR should reflect the policy. The AR kind of lands in the administrative side of saying, how do we set up the rules around making sure this policy is followed? But the board, I don't think, reads through the AR as much as just focusing on the first couple pages of the actual board policy.
All right. So have people had a chance to look through this? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I did have one question, and maybe, and I was talking with a friend of mine about this, and then does a parent have the right, or do we have the right to, it said on, it's a line 3031, when identify and hold harmless district staff can they legally, can we require somebody to give up their rights to, if a student's being bullied and the district's negligent in addressing it, would that fall outside the scope of that? And this is just more informational than anything. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer but a friend of mine and I were talking about it. And he asked me, and I said, I have no idea.
Could you say the line number again, Tom?
Line 3031. So in a sense, the parent, by signing that, is saying they are holding the district harmless. Is that something we can require that they sign? I mean, because in a sense, we require the student to participate, and then we're saying, but if they don't sign, then they can't participate. That was a question that I would ask, and there may be parents that ask that. Is that something Lucas, or is that just boilerplate language and they can still sue the district if they want and it doesn't mean anything?
Yeah, Tom, that's a really good question. So this language in the BP is, other than a few tweaks that we've made, is straight CSBA language, meaning it's been reviewed and developed by attorneys. Now, I think from your question is exactly the right one. We know that just because there is language in a policy, it doesn't necessarily preclude someone from suing a school district, for example, if a school district was negligent. I mean, we've all seen that, right? There's places where you might sign a waiver, but I think in cases where they're just not following rules, there can, that's where the attorneys get involved. So this is our general protection, I think, for the district. Yeah.
Dawn?
Go ahead, Dawn.
Or did I miss the?
I was just going to ask on line 54. It starts on 53, but it says the District Technology Advisory Committee and appropriate staff shall regularly review and update procedures to enhance the safety and security of students using district technology and to help ensure the district. So I'm not quite sure what that really means. And is there any concern about defining regularly review? Or does it just not matter?
It's a good question. It did come up in our subcommittee work.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah, it was It was determined that we kept it not on a specific time frame, just to make sure that if we missed every year, every 16 months or something like that, if we actually missed a piece to the board policy, we'd be actually violating and creating a kind of a roadblock for that. But we did want to keep regular in there, so it's a little bit interpretive to say we need to come back to it. We could put it on the tax agenda. We could put it on the superintendent or designee's agenda to come back to it. So it came up, but we didn't want to give it an exact time frame. But we're willing to definitely kick it around if people have other.
No, I
pieces.
kind of assumed that it probably wouldn't be a great idea to be like every 2 years or, but as we saw from the last time the technology agreement was updated, I think it had been like 12 or so, 20 or so. Anyway, that's fine. I just thought I'd ask.
And did I see your hand up? Did I miss that?
I just had my hand up. We have a few members that are trying to get in the meeting. So there's a little chat on that. I think they need to refresh their calendar to get the correct link.
Yeah, I'm
Pam,
not. Yeah, I'm not
Robert.
sure. Robert, I got an email from Robert. I don't know how to respond to him. I invited him with his work email, so I'm hoping that he gets that, and we'll see a new
Yeah, I think
email
it's
event.
I think they're still using the old link from what I can follow in the email.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
you
mean, the
just
old
tell
link
them-
shouldn't be
just tell
available
them to
anymore.
click where it says new link in the meeting. They'll still be able to get to it without refreshing.
In total transparency, it took me a while to figure out that I was not reading the instructions, and I kept clicking on the new link. So,
Yeah, I had trouble
and
getting
then I
into.
actually logged into my regular Gmail account because it said I couldn't get on my school account. And then I finally went back to the original thing and read the headliner. It said you need to use the new link. So,
Well, once the
I'm
calendar
sorry.
no, your
invite was
fault.
updated, the old link disappeared, and that's where they're, I think.
Linda,
Yeah,
could you send, instead of the invite, but could you just send a mass email that has that?
Yep.
Just the single link, and then maybe they'll
I can do that right now.
get ahead of that.
Sorry about the confusion.
So while
Not a
Linda's
problem.
doing that, I do have a question, Bart. In the AR portion, line 147, I'm reading along, following along, makes sense. It seems to handle the challenges that I'm aware of from this year. I suddenly get to section C, and the first thing about students using it is got that social networking thing right there. And I got really distracted. Aren't they expected to only access sites for school related purposes, including social networking? I don't know.
Sorry, Anne, what line are you on again?
147.
Wait, can you repeat? Can you repeat what you just said? I'm confused as I'm reading it.
In section C, the header is student use of technology.
Right.
And the first item is you can't use social networking.
No, it doesn't say you can't use. You can only use it to access. You can only use it for school-related purposes.
I think
It
I'm going to
doesn't say
jump
you
in.
can't
I
use
think,
it.
Regardless of
students-
regardless of what it actually says, what bothers me is that the first thing we talk about for students in using technology is social networking. I get that it's really important in their lives right now, but there wasn't anything about education, learning, instruction. It was social networking. That's what bothered me, is that it was the first thing. If it would have been item 9 or 10. So
sounds good. I have noted that, Anne, and
Thank you.
I agree with you. I think it would make sense to either restate the mission of the student use of technology there, and then add in some of the prohibited don't do this, watch your public, your personal
You know, Bart,
information.
it actually may go down into respecting resource limits under line 93. That might be a perfect spot to put it. Oh, did we lose Bart?
He's looking, he's scrolling.
He's scrolling, but he scrolled himself out. So did people
Anyway,
get my
that
email?
other than that, that was really my only thing. It just seemed like that's not the main purpose. And when you put something number one, it seems kind of, anyway.
Why don't I bring that back to our subcommittee? And I've noted it on my working document.
Thanks, Bart.
The timing or the
Or-
bringing it forward.
Order of importance.
Order of importance. Great.
Thank you.
Hey, Linda, the communication from some of the members who are trying to get on, as it says it's waiting for them to be let in. Have you
Yeah, and
seen
I'm not seeing anything. I wonder if it's asking for, just hold on, let me see if I get in with my get in with my district and see if it's asking for
That's probably why, Linda. If you're using your personal email, it wouldn't be popping up.
yeah, let me hold on, because I'm on my personal account right now. So let me just give me 2 seconds and I will get in here. Okay. All right. Sorry. That was my fault.
Linda, we have you on stereo now. That's pretty neat.
Isn't that great? You see me twice? I'll get off on my other one.
Yeah, we can see them coming in, Linda.
Hi, everyone. Finally in. Thanks.
All right. I'm going to do a quick overview because we have a few new members or a few members that have just joined. Right now, we're on the agenda item talking about the board policy of student use of technology. And we've opened up the PDF that has line numbers, and we've been going down as anybody has any feedback on this document. And I started off by initially saying that it's important to remember that we're not adding any information to the TAC bylaws or anything. This isn't a first read. We're just trying to give a yay or nay, this looks reasonable approval of this document. And then I think I saw Ellie had his hand up.
Thanks, Bart. I trying to find the existing board language here, so I apologize if this question is not on point. But relating to line number 91 and onwards, I appreciate that it specifically calls out that the type of instruction regarding being safe online is it can be scaffolded for different age groups. I just wanted to make sure, usually sites have been given a pretty wide range of autonomy in being able to define the topics, the time of the year in which it's going to initially be instructed and reviewed, and just wanted to check if there was any significant deviation from existing language as it relates to how we're providing this instruction to students.
Lucas, did you have a comment towards that?
Yeah, I can comment on that. So one of the things that we know is from school to school, there are some differences in how this is done. And we know that at certain grade levels, I think official curriculum is being used. And I know that because I do have to provide that information for our E-rate funding. That's one of the requirements for us to get those federal funds. One of the things that I like to point out here is it does not require that every grade level is taught every year about these topics. That in and of itself gives the schools a lot of flexibility. But I think the reality of this is that most schools are providing instruction regardless, because if I'm a teacher and I have kids in my room, I'm going to be talking to them about what's appropriate and what's not. So this language that's being used, it says superintendent or designee. That's really formal, rigorous language, but really all it is saying is that the schools have to have a plan to help their kids be successful online. And sometimes it comes in the form of official curriculum, which we see at a lot of our middle schools. And sometimes it's more informal, like what's happening in the classroom.
Thank you very much.
Tom?
I was just going to say that Bart, when I was in CNI, spent extensive time, Lucas, developing curriculum related, and I assume you still have all that curriculum you developed, Bart. Yeah. So as a resource, Lucas, and I know the CNI could look to Bart. I know he spent a lot of time. We had worked together, and his was more along what this calls for. So that may be a resource that can be sent out. So it was fairly extensive. Just a shout out to Bart on that work, and it was a great job. So that may be an additional resource that could be provided.
Thank you. Bart, you've been holding out on me.
I was turned down by other members of the environment that I
Because
work
that didn't
in.
turn out right. I was doing a kudos, and now you get called out, Bart. I don't know about that.
No, that's all good. Yes, I will be happy to share that resource with you, Lucas. Any other wonderful perusing of this magical document? I think we tried to look at the language and bring it in, taking out words like pager and strange old technology that isn't there. And we tried to also not simplify, but make sure we're trying to use as consistent a vocabulary as well. So everything became material instead of matter, content, image. You know, that's an example that we got some good feedback from our subcommittee members. Lucas?
One of the things that I just want to bring up is, from my perspective, I would like to have this policy in place by next year. And there's a variety of reasons for that. So as we're looking at it tonight, like, I think it's okay to, we could approve it potentially tonight with that addition to the student use of technology portion, where we add an extra line in there that talks about responsible use for technology. But I just want to remind the committee, especially for those who didn't work on this previously, we worked on it for quite a bit, off and on, but the current policy for student use of technology is from 1997. And that's where some of the urgency behind this comes. And the other thing I want to remind us of is, I think as a committee, we can really look at this every year if we want. If we want to focus in on one particular area, whether it be social media or whatever it might be, we have a lot of flexibility and the option to bring this to the board every year. And if we're just talking about making administrative regulation changes, technically those don't have to be approved by the board. It's really the board policy that needs to be approved by the board. And so when you look at what has been brought forward tonight, the board policy right now is probably 98, 99% straight CSBA or California School Board Association language. And with the minor tweaks we've made, I don't anticipate any reason why the school board wouldn't approve it. But our previous language was not based on anything from CSBA or anything official. So we've not done a lot other than just saying CSBA has provided us this board policy. And then we started building the administrative regulations based upon, actually, some of it comes from a business policy, believe it or not, and then some of it has come from other districts that we've seen. So I wanted to give that framework for the parents and the staff who might not have been involved in the previous work that's been done.
Tom?
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
No worries. If I'm missing anybody, please chime in. Okay.
I have just one quick question. I promise it's super fast. So if do we have to do we have to add anything once email gets turned on, or is it just all kind of encompassed in all the different parts that are there would cover anything from email? That's my question.
Good question. So we did have a robust discussion about turning on student email and providing a advisory document for the board there. So we're hoping that they would use most of that, obviously up to them. And that would cover most of the email concerns. And email has now been added into the board policy. We see that when it says electronic communication and other spots, the technological environment is kind of the general term.
Yeah.
used.
Okay. That's what I was kind of alluding to. Like the language sort of covers it without having a section. So that's fine. Okay. Just wanted to ask.
Lucas?
Can I make a motion?
One more. We had one more.
Yeah, so just to specifically address the email piece, I appreciate you bringing that up. So in the context of our policy work, I think it's worth noting that the board policy itself does address it indirectly, and that gives us as a district a lot of flexibility as to how we manage email and some of the rules that we have around it. The parent-student handbook for 21-22 has received updated language. So school support services has got that final piece in place. The other thing I'm just going to mention, even though it's a little bit unrelated to this, is that for summer school, students will have access to email at the secondary level. We have received a one-page document from the attorney that will be an opt-out form. And we may need to apply that really for all of our middle school, junior high, and high school students, even if they're not going to attend summer school, simply because we don't necessarily know who is going to be attending summer school. So what I'm toying with is just sending it to all families. And that would then allow us to just set it up for everyone, and it'll be ready for next year then. But we won't be doing that same thing for elementary. So I wanted to share that.
So Lucas, this would just be middle school, like 6th grade and up. So middle school and up. Okay. Anne?
I just, not every high school attendance area has a middle school at this time. So it's something to be prepared for, because some schools are going to say, why don't all my 6th graders have it since the 6th graders at X middle school have it? Just a thought.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Anne. So one of the things that I like about our current policy is it gives us flexibility as to how we do this. So we're going to have, I'm going to rephrase this just so that there's clarification. We're actually going to be creating email addresses for all students. And then what we will be doing then is defining rules for those kiddos. The feedback that I've received was for middle school, junior high, and high school. Well, for high school, they're going to have non-walled garden accounts, which means they can receive emails from the outside, send emails to the outside world, but they won't be able to send emails, believe it or not, to like the elementary kids. At least that's the original or current feedback. Now, if as a district, and the feedback from principals and parents was, hey, maybe we want them to, we would have the flexibility to adjust those rules as necessary. For middle school, though, and junior high, the plan is that we're going to allow those students to email each other and to email the teachers, but they're not going to be able to email other like elementary or high school at this point. And for elementary, it's only going to be able to email staff. So kids won't be able to email each other. And sixth grade is kind of that funky line that we have because we're still doing the middle school conversion. At this time, the best recommendation I had was that we would include them as part of the elementary school policy. Now, we could change our mind as a district and we could say, nope, we want our sixth graders to be able to email each other. We could do that. But it wouldn't be like at the middle school where an eighth grader could email a sixth grader or a seventh grader could email an eighth grader. So it's just one of these in-between situations that it's a liminal. We're kind of in that in-between spot. So maybe that's some additional feedback that I could get from the elementary principals as to whether or not they want the sixth grade students to be able to email each other in addition to the staff.
All right, thank you, Lucas. Anything else? Dawn, were you ready to make a motion?
Yes. We want to make a motion to approve the board policy, the updated technology use board policy. Is that how we want to say it? To go to the school board for approval? I didn't word that very well.
That's right.
But Ellie
I
can,
think that's
Ellie can fix it for me.
Do we not have to read it twice here at our committee before we pass it on?
no.
No.
This isn't a change to our bylaws. This is just recommending this board policy change to the board.
So the motion is Don has moved to approve the updates to BP 6163.2 and the associated AR to be moved forward for the board to review.
Oh, I worded that perfectly. Thank you.
You
Ellie.
did.
Do I have a second?
Hold on one thing though, with the caveat that we would add an extra line with under the student use of technology that would summarize the purpose of this is responsible use.
With the proposed suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Don. That was perfect. Tom, did you have something?
No, I just know that that's what I was gonna. As Don suggested, because it sounds like there are going to be some suggestions made, and there'll be changes made to it. So I guess we can approve it with suggested changes. I don't know if,
All right.
I don't know if Greg Bonacorsi would approve Don with that. But.
All right. Do I have a second? Thank you, Tom. So Tom seconded. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of recommending this board policy change these board policy changes to BP 6163.2, the student use of technology, please say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. So we can move this forward to the board for our recommendation to the board. All right. Moving forward much more quickly than I thought we would be, which is nice. We need to set our dates for our calendar for next year. So I am going to share my, excuse me, share my, I don't want to do that, cancel that. Share my screen here real quick. All right. So does everybody see my little calendar here? It starts with 2021. So all the little, let's see, the blue dates that we have here was our current schedule, our current meetings. The green ones are what I'm proposing. So I'm proposing similar to our rules that we have now, Our next meeting would be the 1st of June, which would be the first meeting of the next committee. And then we wouldn't have another meeting. Now the magenta are the start and finish of the finish and the start of school. So school starts on August 18th. Proposing that our next meeting, our September meeting, our first meeting of the new school year would be the 13th. And pretty much because of the way the holidays fall, except for January, everything would be the first Monday of the month. January would be the only one where we would move it to the second Monday because the first Monday is a holiday. Does anybody have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything regarding Dawn? No, your hand's up. Nothing, everybody's quiet? All right, does anybody want to move to approve this calendar?
Linda, you said June 1st.
No, I said June 7th.
Oh, June 7th. Okay, I misheard. My
June
apologies.
7th would be our next, June 7th would be our next meeting, and it would move out, follow that same first Monday, except for our September and our January meeting.
Just
Ellie,
wondering
did you have
if
a question? Oh, sorry.
I'm just wondering if the high school graduation calendar was checked for that.
It was not.
Sometimes
My understanding is that they're all bumped later because the AP tests were later this year, but we should find out when the earliest one is. That's a very good question.
Robertson always operates on a different schedule, and that's why it popped in my head. So I'll look it up while we.
No, that's a good idea. I know ours was bumped from the 10th to the 14th, and it's possible that they were all bumped later, but we should find out.
As far as like new members, like whether it's staff side or parent side or whichever union group or appointees, all those, for people whose term is ending, do they vote anyway? Like you see where I'm going with this? Like how does
Well,
it
I
work?
get,
We're deciding
yeah,
the first yeah, you know what I'm
yeah,
gonna say, so I'm gonna stop.
I'm hearing now from Robert that maybe I thought we should be setting the whole schedule, but I guess, or our whole meeting calendar for next year. But it sounds like we're only setting the June meeting for next year. So I don't know why we have this. I guess I'm a bit confused. I know we'll have new members, but I mean, I thought we basically went by our bylaws as to when meetings were. So, Ellie, did you have a question or a comment?
That was, I think, in relation to what was previously being said regarding the June 7th meeting, being that that's the last instructional week, and there may be some curveballs coming down with promotions or last minute celebrations. I know that.
Okay, so
I don't have
yeah, some of
I
the
hate to
some of the
bring
chat
a
I'm getting.
concern up without having a good solution to offer, however.
Yeah, I mean, some of the commentary that's going on in the chat is graduations are June 14th and the 15th this year for all 6 high schools. So I'm not sure what are people's concerns with the 7th, and why was that brought up? Have we had issues before with it? What are we coinciding with? People not being able to make it to meetings or that meeting?
I know that elementary sites across the district aren't doing full-blown in-person graduation ceremonies, anything like what the high schools are doing, but various elementary schools may be doing some form of drive-through or other very scaled down versions of promotions, but nonetheless would involve planning and time during that week.
Okay, I see what
But
you're saying. It's more time for staff.
but that's selfishly, I think that's kind of a consideration for myself. I'm not sure if it's relevant necessarily to the rest of the committee.
Okay. Lucas?
Well, speaking from my short experience here, having gone through this twice now, I think part of the reason why it's that first Monday in June has been so that the meeting could take place before summer begins, because, you know, with teachers on the committee and obviously Ellie being a principal, I don't know exactly when the summer starts for some of our staff, but I think that's one of the reasons. We obviously, for the purpose of this, we do have to set that first date. And then I think if for some reason we could review the calendar at that meeting as well. So if we had new members where for some reason it really, really didn't work for them, we could change that. But our bylaws do provide guidance for when our meeting dates would be. And time-wise too, that was one of the things that had popped up. If everybody's in agreement, 7 to 8:30 works fine for me. And it's been that case since I've been here, but that was a question that someone had. So I think that the calendar that you proposed, Linda, coincides with the rules of our bylaws. We have tweaked it a little bit previously, but I know like when there's a holiday, for example, then we don't typically have the meeting right after that. But for spring break this year, we wouldn't be affected by that like were before. And I
Right.
think
I think the only one that is really impacted is the January. We could move the January one from the 10th to the 17th if people wanted to, just because that's the first Monday back from winter break. So I mean, if people want, we can move that down.
Linda,
the
the 17th is
17th
a holiday as well in
Yeah,
January.
it's a holiday. Martin Luther
Oh,
King.
is that Martin Luther King? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll
I
make
think-
that a holiday.
I think one of the things that we've talked about over the last 2 years of calendar setting is what the current bylaws say doesn't work with the appointment cycle, and we need to make a correction of that. Having not been able to do that this year with the bylaws update, might not happen till next year. So I think in light of that, go with the bylaws, stick with the calendar you proposed, and try to fix the bylaws next year. So add that to future agenda items.
And did you just make a motion?
So moved.
Hey, Dawn, did I hear a second?
You did.
Thank you, ladies. Any more discussion? Bart?
The only the 6th or the 8th is a COIL, is a 6 p.m. That's one of our other graduation schedules out there, but I don't think that's not on the day of, so I think we're fine with that. And I
Okay.
would that's all I got to say.
All right, thank you, Bart. Any other questions, comments, discussion? All right, all those in favor of accepting the calendar so proposed, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so here's the calendar for next year. I will forward it to Bart. He can get it up on the website. Our next meeting will be June 7th. And I think we will have our new members by that, right? Lucas, the board will be doing that this month.
that's correct. So that was going to be one of my
Okay.
PTO updates, but yeah.
Okay,
the-
so I won't take, I'm not going to take your thunder then. We are all done with our new business. Thank you very much, everybody. And we will move over to Lucas's CTO update.
Okay, well, I think this is going to be pretty short tonight too. So I was just going to remind everyone, this is our last meeting of the year. So congratulations and thank you everyone for your service. It's been an exciting year, probably the most exciting in my entire career, to be honest with you. I'm looking forward to a boring summer and a boring next year, as many of you I hope are too. You can just really wish for that, I would appreciate it.
We'll do our best.
Yes, I do appreciate that. So June 19th, the school board will vote for the community members who have applied. And I'm working with Catherine Evans, who is our IT secretary, to put that together, that agenda item. We will have that completed this week. So that will go to the board, and then, after June 19th, everyone will know who the board has selected for community members for next year. The other thing I just wanted to remind everyone of is at our first meeting in June, we will be selecting the members who will serve as, I guess, chair, assistant chair, and secretary. And particularly for the chair position, that alternates every year. So Linda, I want to thank you for your service this year, serving as chair. We will have to have a staff member. So if you want to put out your campaign materials, now's the time to work on them. You've got a little bit of time, okay? So let me know if you're interested in running, just so I have an idea, because if we don't have a large number of people who are interested, I might have to twist some arms or something.
And Lucas,
And-
real quick, you mean
Yep.
May 19th, right? Not June 19th.
I'm sorry, May 19th. Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, the board, so May 19th, and then obviously that first meeting in June, the new chair would be voted for. So, and I'm seeing people saying Linda did a great job. I agree. So thank you, thank you. And
Thank you.
our assistant chair, is that Dawn?
Yep.
Yep. Thank you, Dawn. And then thank you, Ellie, for your being the best secretary since I've been here. But if we could keep you in that position permanently, I think we would. So I appreciate it.
It's been fun, and thank you for the gold star.
Right on the forehead.
All right. So just a couple updates. At the last board meeting, then you already heard that the TAC bylaws were updated, so we'll have a new member in September. And the board also approved the purchase of 2,874 Chromebooks using LCAP funds. And I wanted to give a special thanks to the LCAP committee, as I did at the board meeting. President Burbeck Herrera, she chairs that committee, and I really appreciate her support in that effort. I also wanted to share with you that using my IT budget funds, I really worked hard this year to scrounge together some dollars, and I placed an order for 709 Chromebooks to supplement this. And as a reminder to the community, we did have this coming September 10,000 Chromebooks approximately that were going to go end of life, which means that they will no longer receive security updates or software updates for applications and the operating system. That doesn't mean that they're immediately useless, but obviously the longer that they stay in that condition, the more useless they become. So we worked really hard to replace as many of those as possible. And I also know that schools have been using some of their discretionary funds. And I believe the end result was about an additional 600 Chromebooks that the schools purchased. So we put a pretty good dent in that 10,000, but obviously there's room for improvement there. The last thing I wanted to mention is that this coming summer, we are going to be using Clever for single sign-on and for provisioning. One of the consequences of that, though, is that for the applications and students that were using those during the school year, if they're not attending summer school, they will not be able to use Clever for that. And this is an issue for every school district. I've been meeting with CTOs around the area, and there really is no good answer for this, other than as CTOs, we're going to be pushing Clever to, in the future, to be able to accommodate both scenarios, meaning leaving what happened during the school year intact, so they could be used during the summer, while at the same time supporting summer school and the use of Clever for provisioning of accounts and single sign-on. It's a difficult situation that we're in. And as a district, we have an added complication where we're going to be switching away from Illuminate to provisioning those accounts to using Infinite Campus. So as soon as school's done, we have 1 week to make that happen. So this year's even got more challenges than previously. And that's it.
So Lucas, why is so what I'm hearing is that once the kids leave school on the 9th, they won't have access to their Clever accounts anymore unless they're going to summer school.
That's correct.
And is that because their grade has expired? Is it the way Clever works? Is they only go from September to or August to June, or?
So it's based upon their enrollment dates, which makes sense. So if you think about during the regular school year, if you have a new student, that student will show up when they're enrolled. But when they drop, those students then are removed from the student information system, meaning they have a drop date. And then Clever reads that and says, oh, this student should no longer be in this class. And they remove them from that class.
Okay. So
Yep.
it's very similar to what we were kind of talking about last meeting with the difference between a classroom and a roster, right? Is that you can prepare your classroom, but your classroom doesn't really get implemented until you have a roster. So now these kids, so what I'm hearing is that since the kids aren't in a roster, they're not in Clever. Okay.
You got it.
Okay, Tom, you had a question?
Yeah, I did, Lucas. Obviously we don't have the data, but school districts that have done this with issuing Chromebooks out to literally thousands of students. Is there, I hesitate the word industry standard, but a district standard of return rate or broken rate or something along those lines? Do we have that kind of information?
So for our district, we don't have that data, but I can tell you from my previous experience, I've seen percentages as low as around 5%. And I've not ever experienced it personally, but I've heard of districts where up to 20% of devices come back broken or with issues. I suspect if we were to move to one-to-one, we would probably be on the very low end. And I wouldn't even be surprised if we'd be less than 5%. That's my thought on it. But I would say definitely less than 10%. And that is only based upon the Chromebook distribution that we've done as part of distance learning. I think in the end we'll have some data on that, but I suspect we'll probably be between around 7-8%.
Okay, Dawn? Did you leave your hand up again?
Nope, I had something to add. Jumping back to the Clever information, I think it's also important to point out that when the term ends, it affects teachers and students when the courses end. So it's the same situation for teachers accessing programs through Clever as it is for students once we jump into summer term.
Gotcha. All right, thank you, Dawn. And Lucas, I had one other question that kind of piggybacked on Tom's. Is do we have an insurance policy on the Chromebooks on devices that go out to the students that cover broken, damaged, stolen, lost devices?
We do not have insurance on those. Our insurance policy is for more high value items. Typically, the most cost effective is, especially with Chromebooks, is districts just purchase extra because insurance is pretty spendy. And I believe in California, we're not allowed to charge students for insurance, which is not the case in every state. So really purchasing additional Chromebooks is the equivalent of being self-insured. And I found that to be I found that to be the most cost effective, especially if you have a very responsible population of students.
Okay, good. Anything else? Ann?
I just want to compliment Lucas and his administrators and all the techs because they've really worked hard to keep the Chromebooks running, and that's kept that percentage very low. Ellie, I don't know about you, but we have very few that are totally dead. Under 20 out of all that we've checked out and come back and swapped in and swapped out and given out the directions about how to reset the microphone again. But we have very, very few. When we get the bulk of them back, that could change. But when the kids can't get connected, they tell an adult goes to a school staff member to get help, and we make a swap so the kids can learn. So appreciate all your department, because they've been running, I know.
Thank you,
You're
Ann.
welcome. Thank you, Ann.
All right, Michelle?
Yeah, I just had a couple of things. One, Lucas, please convey to everyone on your staff how much they have been instrumental in allowing us to move forward as a district, because when we had to pivot in March and getting hardware out to the kids and everything, I know my job, I ended up overnight going, oh, okay, I can be an IT person. It's they are always there to take the call. They answer the help desk, and the response has been very quickly. And so I just wanted to say, I know it's become from you on top, but so the rest of the people can know. Also, that I will keep them in my prayers when they have to put the Chrome carts back together again, because I know that's going to be a horrific job. And then the third thing I did want to bring up, and I don't know if this is the month or maybe I should do it in June, but we have TipWeb. And at the beginning of the school year, when we were checking out books, TipWeb was not connected at the same timing as the high schools that were coming back early to do Maze Days. And so we've been behind the 8 ball ever since with trying to get books registered in TipWeb. Can we, I want to throw it out there now so that as you're looking at the calendars, that we make sure that, especially since we're coming back earlier this year, that maybe we need to have TipWeb start being effective or open to us August 1st rather than the first day of school. And I'll just leave it there.
Thank you, Michelle, for your compliments for my team. And I want to let you know, I actually have a Maze Day meeting tomorrow. I made a note about TipWeb. I haven't personally used it, but I believe the purchasing department is the one who manages and supports that. And ironically, I actually had a conversation today with our purchasing director about TipWeb. But we didn't talk about that. So I will bring this up at our meeting tomorrow for Maze Day planning, just to make sure that it's on everybody's radar.
All right, anybody else? All right, I just want to thank everybody. This has been a challenging year, but I think this is one of the first years that I have been on TAC that we have actually had quorum at every meeting, which is a plus. I have enjoyed working with every single one of you. I appreciate all your insight, your input, your knowledge, your desire to see the kids succeed, see our children in the district succeed. For those of you that are terming out, that aren't coming back, thank you so much for serving on TAC. It has been a pleasure serving with each and every one of you. So this is basically for anybody who's not coming back. This is your last meeting. Our next meeting in June is the first meeting of the quote unquote new school year, or new TAC committee year. So at that meeting, we will, as Lucas said, we will be doing elections for a new chairperson, which will be a district employee this time, not a community member, because they swap each year. And then the vice chair will be a community member, and the secretary just can be anybody. So Ellie, if you're interested in keeping this up, oh, your eyes popped out. I saw that. But if anybody is interested, as Lucas said earlier, if anybody is interested in any of those positions, let him know. Lucas, it's been a pleasure working with you and just communicating, setting things up and things like that, and keeping things rolling in these difficult times. So I just want to again thank everybody and wish everybody well. Go ahead, Lucas.
Hey, I forgot one really important thing here. If I remember right, Kant told me that he will not be continuing this next year. And if I'm misspeaking, Kant, I apologize, but I wanted to thank you for your service as a parent. And if there's any other parents on here too that are not planning on returning, if you want to share right now, that'd be great. But I really want to say I appreciate your service. I remember even, I think from that first night when I attended TAC, it was my first day on the job or something. I think you were there. And you've been a very consistent member. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Lucas. Thanks, everyone. I, definitely enjoyed, working with all of you, and wish you all the best. And thanks for what you do for our kids. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So unless there's anything, Michelle, did you just leave your hand up, or I see your little hand in the corner there? All right. Tom, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I put it in the chat, and I guess I didn't. I was going to raise it during the calendar, and maybe the board's made a determination. I honestly don't know. You reminded me when we've had quorum every time, and historically, I've been on it now. This is year 11, and Robert's been here longer. We have had a few meetings where we haven't had quorum, but this, I think, online vehicle allows people greater flexibility, so we haven't had that issue. And I don't know if it's, I don't know if that's something the board has addressed, the possibility of different committees continuing to meet online. If that's something committees vote individually, I don't know. It's more of a question, because I will say that there's nothing more depressing is staying late for a meeting at 7 o'clock and sitting there. And not that I don't love seeing people, but then at 7:30 getting in my car after 4 hours of waiting for a meeting. And so I don't know if there's been any talk about different committees meeting online. I don't know what that protocol would be.
Just to add to that, as a teacher rep, a lot of teachers can't afford to live in Fremont. So you would get more participation, I think, from teacher staff members if they didn't have to physically go home and deal with their kids with daycare or whatever, and then come back. And then for parents, a lot of our parent members have kids at home concurrently during the meeting. And so not to have to find, babysitting for them or whatever might be really helpful.
I agree. It has been super convenient to not have to, hop in the car and drive all the way down to the district office. I don't know how that would be handled. I don't know whether that would be a consensus of the committee at our first meeting that we agree to that, or whether that needs to be a bylaw change. I'm not sure. Robert might be able to give us some more, and I think he has his hand up, so I'm going to let him speak. Robert?
My guess, and I think online meetings are nice, but my guess is that to facilitate more participation to the public, and Brown Act wants everything public, then my guess is they would go back, but we can ask. But my question, and separately, my question was whether we have any staff people that are going to be stepping down or not coming back. Or is everyone coming back? That's great.
Yeah, I think everybody reapplied.
Awesome.
All right. Is that it, Robert? All right, Vivek?
Yeah, sorry, I just joined 10 minutes ago. The other meeting went on for too long. So I don't know what all I missed, but personally, I feel that individual committees should make their recommendations to the board, and then as a board we should decide having the option for people to dial in is immensely valuable from my perspective, right? And but we should not take away the in-person part of it. So whoever, if we set up a conference room where some people are on site and some dial in, I think that will keep the interaction going and maximize participation.
And I also think that, I mean, one of the nice things that, I mean, I've had to remember is that these are streamed. So again, people don't need to drive all the way down to the district office to see and sit in on the meeting. You know, but that's just my commentary, is that, you know, I think the convenience, you know, of people being able to come in and see the meeting streaming. So, Lucas?
Yeah, my feeling on this is that once things are back to normal, however we define that, and I think probably part of the way we will define that is based upon when our school board meetings start accepting in-person attendees. I could envision that the committees could have kind of a hybrid model as well. It wasn't something that I wanted to necessarily talk about tonight because I think it will be a future topic for us. But I would envision that once we can have those from the public in person again, that we would have a venue where they could be there. But I could envision that, you know, if we have a teacher who's on the committee and wants to attend remotely, or whoever it might be, they could attend remotely, but we would need to have some presence in the building. And we would have to have a venue where that person could participate, whether it is just having a laptop set up and they walk up to the laptop and they talk there. We just have to, you know, mute our mics in the room. I think it's workable.
Okay, Anne?
I think the hybrid idea, as Lucas is describing, is a great idea, but I think there need to be some committee parameters or reminders at the start of meetings about the fact that while the meeting is streamed, the chat is not. And so it's very difficult for those watching a committee meeting that's being streamed to understand when someone mentions a link in the chat or things happening in the chat or I see in the chat, because you can't see that on the stream unless someone can teach me how.
You're right, Ann. Yep. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, if not, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting will be June 7th at 7 o'clock, same place. All right. We'll see everybody. Have a good month, and we'll see everybody in June.
Bye-bye,
Thank you, everybody.